Welcome to a class of building websites using Python tutorial. For learning how you can build different Python websites with different kind of framework. So if you're planning to learn to build different websites using Python, then you are in the right place because in this class, we'll cover everything to get you started with building websites using Python. So now let's take a look what you learned from this class. One, creating a website using Flask and Python. So Flask is basically a framework which we are going to use. And second one is creating templates for your website, which is the template for the Flask website where I have used the Flask framework. I have created the template in a different chapter. So both of these are a single website. And the third one is building a simple website using Streamlit. Streamlit is also a different function which we have used in creating a web page. Okay, that is another framework. And the other one, or the fourth one, is making a multi-page website in Python. So a web page or a website having more than one page, which is redirecting to different pages, is known as a multi-page website. I have showed you guys how to make that and making a website using Python and TypePy. Okay, so TypePy is also a framework which I have used inside my website. You guys can also check that one out. I have tried to explain to you guys quite easily. And the next one is making a website using Python and Anvil. Okay, so Anvil is a graphical framework which you guys can check from your web. If you just type anvil.works, you will create the UI as well. And lastly, I have shown you guys how you can create a login form using Python Tkinter. Okay, so Tkinter is also another framework. I have showed you guys how to create a web page. And also, after completing this class, you will be able to learn the basics of web development, different Python framework for web development. There is such as Anvil, TypePy. We have learned about Flask. We are going to learn about Tingta and also about the Streamlit. And also, you are going to have the front-end basics and integration. You will be able to learn about the database management. You will be able to learn form handling and data validation, which we have learned in detail in our Anvil class. And also, after creating each and every website, we will be testing and debugging. So you will be learning all of that. So you will have supported resources in this class. So it will be easier for you to learn and understand. During learning, if you guys face any issue or if you guys have any question, then feel free to ask me. I'm always there for you to help you. So now let's start learning to build websites using Python together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome you all to the first chapter of building website using Python. So now this is chapter number one, where I will be showing you guys about creating a website using Flask and Python. Okay, so we learned that how you can create a website from scratch and with a limited time. Okay, so these are going to be very simple websites, but I'll be teaching you guys the very basics of how to create. And if you want to design those things a bit, you can do that as well right over here. So let's not waste much time and let's get started. Over here, we are going to learn that how you can create a website using Python and Flask. Okay, so you guys might be wondering like what Flask is. So Flask is basically a microwave framework. Okay, so we are going to learn the very basics of Flask, and like if you are comparing this particular thing to any kind of what is say if you are comparing this to Django, like using which you can also create a website, like it is a lot simpler than Django. Like if you do have any knowledge about Django, then you will be able to work in Flask as well. It's kind of similar, like it that is also a web framework, okay, which you can import and I will tell you that if you do have any virtual environment, like if you do have a IDE, in that case, you guys can go and install Flask directly from there. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you can also install it anywhere from your command prompt. Okay, so just come here and you can just type command prompt. And over here now, you need to make sure that you create up a file. Okay, so before that, let's come here. And over here, basically, let's go to desktop. And from here, basically, you can actually create up a file. Okay, so let's say website using Flask. And make sure to select the directory. Okay, so over here, I'm gonna go with building 6 website using Python. So instead, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come here and let's Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Let's click on enter. And here, as you guys can see, that building 6 website is not recognized as an internal or external command or an operable program or batch. Okay, so instead, what I can do right over here is I can just go into my file. Let's say if I'm just using any IDE, let's open up a folder. And from here, now I can just select this. Let's click on select folder. And this is the type of page I will be able to see. So from here, I can actually create up a new file and I can just name this one as 1.py. And now I'll just click on enter. And here you guys can see now I do have one Python file right over here. And from this top options, I'll be selecting a terminal. Let's go with a new terminal right over here. And the first thing is I need to install Flask. Okay, so to install Flask, make sure that you have uh, the directory over here. Then I'll just type pip install Flask. Okay, so let's come here and let's click on enter. And here you guys will be able to see that your Flask will basically be installed. So as you guys can see over here that I already do have installed Flask. Here it's showing me that requirements already satisfied. Okay, so it's already being downloaded. And now, once you are done installing Flask, okay, and if you do have problem installing Flask using pip install Flask, you can also use pip3 install Flask. Otherwise, you can use pip m3 install Flask. Otherwise, pip install 3 Flask. Okay, you guys can use those keywords as well. Okay, so from here, the very first thing what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna import the Flask, or I'm just going to import this framework into this particular file in which I'm working. So I will just type install Flask. So now what I'm gonna do is it's exactly not import. First, I need to type from Flask. Now import Flask. Okay. So here, if you guys will take a look, don't get confused that you need to use a small letter over here from Flask, import Flask. But here you need to make sure that you do have a capital letter once you are importing Flask. Okay. So now to create the instance over here, now I'm going to come here and now I am going to type app equals to, and I again need to import Flask over here. Like I will just type Flask, then I will just open the column. Like I'll just open the parenthesis over here and I will just type underscore underscore main. Then I will just put underscore right over here back again. And now I will just click on enter. Let's come back again. And now over here, I am going to use a if statement. Okay, so I will just type if underscore underscore, and I will just type name. Then I'll just type underscore underscore, then double equals to. And now over here, I am going to name my component as main again. Okay, so for that, now I will just use the single quote or double quote is also fine. I'll just use the double quote. Then I will just put underscore underscore main underscore underscore. And at last over here, I am going to use out colon. Okay, so I'll just come here and I'm going to use a column. And lastly, I'm just going to type app dot run. Then I'll just close down the parenthesis. Okay, so over here, this is the simplest way of how you will be able to create uh, just the body of this particular website. Here you guys can see that first I do have imported Flask over here. Then I do have created a variable, which is app equals to, then I have imported Flask. I have named it inside. And after that, use the if statement. And here you guys can see it's equals to main. And after that, I do give the command as app.run. So well, as the framework is done, now the next thing what I'm gonna do over here is I need to create pages for my website. Okay, like you do have created a website, but you need pages inside the website. Okay, so for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to define a function. Okay, so to define a function, you always type def in Python. So I'll just type def, and after that, now I am going to name this. Okay, so I'm going to name this one as my home. Okay, so I'm just going to write my home. And now I'm just going to come here and I'm just going to open out the parentheses. Now I will just use colon and let's click on enter. And here inside the function, you guys can see that I already have an indentation right over here. Okay, so if you take a look, you guys can see that, well, there is a indentation right on the left hand side. Okay, and now once I've defined this function, now I can just write the HTML of my website right over here. So in that case, I do want to return something. Now let's open out the double quote. Okay, so I have opened up the double quote, and now I am going to type, this is the homepage for my website. Okay, so you guys can just put anything, whatever you want, but as I'm just showing you guys an example, I'm going to return this particular thing. And as well as for that, you guys can also use the H1 tag. Okay, so you guys can also use H1 tag. If you know HTML, you guys are well familiar with those things. Okay, so let's come right over here and let me just show you guys that how it will actually look if you have a H1 tag. Okay, so let's come here, let's type H1, let's close this down, and now I will just use some capital letters. I will just type my website, and I'll just close down the H1 tag as well. Okay, so let's come here, let's close down my H1 tag. And yeah, as this is basically done, here you guys can see I do have created one page. Okay, like this is the home page. Well, now I do have created the home page as well. Okay, so I do have defined the function, I have created the home page, but now the next thing is that I need to create a route for my home page. Okay, like I have created the home page, but how I'm going to access this particular page over here. So we're gonna learn about that. Okay, like if I do want to basically access this particular home page, what I'm gonna do. So for that, now let's come here, let's come down. Okay, and from here now let's come on the sixth line over here, and I am going to type at app dot root. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure, and now I do have to make sure that I add the directory of the root of my home page. So now over here in this particular root, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I'm just going to define this one as hash. Okay, as you guys can already see that I do have that particular slash right over here. Okay, so now as you have already seen that I do have actually put out the route over here as well. Now you want to see, well, you do have created the route as well. Now, if I just come here and if I also just type slash home, okay, as you guys can see, this is my home over here. Like the function which I have defined is named as my home. So it will basically return me this. Okay, so now let's just check everything over here and now let's try to run. So over here, as you guys can see, here I do have a problem. So these are just basic problems over here. I do have a slash. So now again, let's run this. And here, as you guys can see that serving Flask app 1, debug mode off. And here, this is a develop. main server, do not use in production deployment. So I don't need to. And now the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come here and I'm just going to copy this particular URL. Okay, so as you guys can see, running on HTTP 127.0.0.1 5000, control C to copy. And from here, you guys can just go to any of your server. Let's come over here, control V. And if you click on enter, here now you guys are able to see that I do have my website right over here. So if you just take out a look, if you just see that here in this first one, I basically had this in my output. Okay, here you guys can see this is the home page for my website, which I do have here on top. And on my H1 tag, you guys can see I do have used all the capital letters. You guys can see my website, and here also it's written as my website. Okay, so as you guys can see, these things are right over here. But now if I try to modify this, let's say if I just type underscore my my let's type this without caps, my home. Okay, and if I just click on enter, you guys are able to see that it shows that not found. The requested URL was not found on the server. If you entered the URL manually, please check your spelling and try again. Okay, so if I'm just typing this, as you guys can see, if I'm just typing slash my home, I'm not able to see this thing. Okay, so for that, now let me just tell you guys few of the other things of creating a website right over here. Okay, so now let's come here and let's define out a new function. Okay, so for that, I will just type def. Okay, I will just give out a space. And now I am going to name this particular function as user page. Okay, so I'm just going to write def user page. Now let's open this parenthesis over here. And inside the parenthesis, now I'm just going to put out a variable. Okay, inside the function, I'm going to mention. Okay, so over here, now let's go with the name. And now I will just close this down with a colon. Let's click on enter. And over here, now I am going to return. I'll just type return over here. Let's give it up a space. And after that, I'm just going to use out a if function. Okay, so I will just type f over here. And after that, I will just open my quotation. So now after you have added out the F string right over here, as you guys can see. So now over here, basically, I am going to return. Okay, so let's come right over here. And I'm just going to return, let's say hi. And I'm going to create a second bracket over here. Okay, so I'm just going to create that. Let's come here. And now inside this one, I am going to put out the same variable which I do have put over here. Okay, so I can just put out the same input. So basically what will happen over here is, let's say I do have put out the F string, and inside this I do have written hi. Then I do have put out the output same as the one which I have mentioned in the function. Okay, so as this is basically done, now let's put out the exclamation. Okay, so I will just put out the exclamation basically inside the double quote. So let's come here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I am going to define the root. Okay, so over here now I am going to define the root. And for that, now let's say at app dot root. And now I am just going to do a bit different over here. And over here, the first function, as you guys can see, I do have mentioned that if you just put out a slash, and that's how it works. But now I am going to basically add some tags. Okay, so let's open the double quote right over here. And after that, now let's put out a slash. And now I am just going to open out a tag, and I'm just going to mention some name. So what will happen is, like if I just add another tag right over here, whatever I mention inside this tag, inside this root, let's say here in the user page, I do have mentioned this output name. So whatever I will mention it right over here, it will basically be seen over here once you return your user page function. Okay, so I can just put out name, otherwise I can just put out anything else. Let's say I will just put Yildiz Okay, you can just put out anything right over here. So now over here, let's run this particular thing right over here. And before that, I need to make sure that I stop. So I'll just click on Control C right over here, and you guys can just type it multiple time, okay, to quit this one. And once you're done, I will just go to my wait page right over here. So well, now over here, as you guys can see, I will just run this particular thing. Okay, so let's click on run right over here. And once you're done, let's come here. Let's follow this particular link. And as you guys can see, this is basically the home page. But now, as you guys can see, now if I just put slash my home, okay, and if I just click on enter here, now you guys can see it's written hello my home. Okay, so if you just come here, hello world, my world. Okay, and if I just click on enter, now it will show me hello my world. Okay, so whatever information do I exactly put right over here, it will show me the same thing, because over here in this particular function I have mentioned the root. Okay, so over here you guys can see I do have this double quote, then I do have the slash, and I do have use the text, and inside the tag I have mentioned the function. Whichever thing I'll put over here, it will be displayed right in the return in form of HTML. Okay, so that's how it basically works. And if you want to quit this one, you guys can click on Control C to basically quit. So now as this is basically done, now the next thing what I'm going to do right over here is I'm going to show that how you can basically redirect. Okay, so for that now I will just click Control C to stop this one. And now I will just come here on top and I will just put out a comma. And over here now I am going to type redirect. Okay, so I'll just type redirect. Let's put comma, and I'll just type URL underscore for. Okay, so as you guys can see, I have put redirect and URL underscore for. And now I am going to define another function right over here. Okay, so I'll just type at app dot route, and over here now I'm just going to mention the name of this particular function. So for that I will just go with first. Okay, so let me just type first right over here in the app root. Let's click on enter, and now I'm just going to def first, and over here I'm just going to open the parenthesis. And now as I do have defined the function, I'm not going to put anything inside my function. So now let's go out with the colon. Let's click on enter, and there I do have the indentation. It is defined as a function. And over here, I want it to return. And what I'm going to do is that anytime I come here and anytime I put out this particular function or I put out this route, I want it to return me a particular page. Let's say I want this particular function to redirect me to this page or to this page. So let me just show you guys with the home page, because it will be a lot easier, because here it's a bit complicated. Okay, so now I will just click on return, and now I am going to type redirect. I will just type redirect, then double quote, and just type URL underscore for. Then I'll just open parenthesis. Then I'll just type home. And as you guys can see now, I do have defined that well. Once I define this first function, it should redirect me to the home page. Okay, so in that particular page, let's run this thing back again. And as you guys can see now, I will just come here and I will basically follow this particular link, and you guys can see that it is basically returning me to the home page in which I work. So if I just click on refresh, it will just stay right over here, and it will always redirect me to my home page. Okay, so that's how it actually works. And yeah, I hope you guys to have just understood this first part of how you can create out a basic website using Flask. And in the next class, we are going to learn that how you can just modify this particular website using HTML and few of the advanced options. So I hope to see you all in the next chapter. Till then, take care and goodbye. So now we are on our chapter number 2, where I'll be showing you guys about creating templates for your website. So in our last class, we do have learned that how you can actually work with the frame of a particular website, like how you'll be able to create those. But here in this chapter, we are going to create templates for a particular website to make it look better and to make it look more organized. So we'll be using different kind of languages over here as well. So let's not waste time and let's get started. So over here on my screen, as you guys can see, that this is basically the work in which I was working on. Okay, so this was basically the page in which I was working on in our last class. And now in our last class, we do have learned that, let's say, if from this user page, or let's say my home function, if you want to come over here, or from this particular page you want to get redirected to the home page, you guys can get redirected to the home page. Okay, but now, let me just tell you guys and show you guys an example. Let's say if you want to see this particular page, which is there as slash first, and you want to view the user page over here, and in the output, in the return option, you also want to see some other name, how you will be able to do that. But if, in last class, we do have learned that if I return redirect URL for, and then I put the name, it will return the same thing. But here now, if I just do the same thing, let's say if I just come here and if I just type user page over here, it won't basically matter. Okay. But what will actually happen right over here is it will just show that particular page. Okay. So for that, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I will just skip it like this because over here actually I do have mentioned the name. Okay. So over here actually I do have mentioned it. And now let's come right over here. And after the user page, I will be giving out a comma. So this is the name redirect. Okay, so this is the page name, and this is basically the function. And inside the function, basically, I do have a parameter. So for that particular parameter, what I'm gonna do is I am going to name the parameter. Okay, so I will just name the parameter. I need to make sure that there is no spelling mistake. Okay, so I will just put equals to. Now let's open the double quote, and under name, you guys can just put on any name. Let's go with Joshua. I will just close this down with a double quote right over here as well. Let's come over here, and after Joshua, if you want to use out an exclamation mark, let's come here. I can also use out an exclamation mark. Let's come here and let's put out an exclamation right over here. So let me just take a look over here as well. And now if I come here and if I just put slash first, okay, as this is the route I do have selected, if I try to go into this particular page, I will basically be redirected to the user page with hi name. Okay, so over here, name I have put equals to Joshua exclamation. So if you do want to test this thing out, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I am going to run this. So let's come here and let's run this thing out. As you guys can see now, I will just come here. I will just click on follow link. Okay. So here you guys can see. But now instead of this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I'm just going to put slash first. Okay. And here, as you guys can see, once I have put on slash first right over here, you guys can see it's written, hi, Joshua. Okay, because automatically, once I have put out this particular route, which is hash first, it is being redirected to this particular page, which I have mentioned. So over here, I can just come here and again, Control S to save this thing up. Now let's come here. Let's try to follow this link. Let's click on follow link. Now let's go with slash first. Let's click on enter. Let's just reload this page. And this is how it will actually look. Otherwise, the same way, if you want to run it again, okay, you guys can come here and Control C to quit this one. And let's run this back again. Or let's come here, Control C. And let's run this Python file again. Now let's follow this particular link. Now let's go with slash first enter, and here now I do have hi Joshua, because over here they did have a extra exclamation mark. As I do have already applied this here, then I just deleted that one, saved that particular file, and I quit the previous website in which I was working. So you guys can just close the other files down from here and be redirected to any page as you want. So this was just the beginning. Now we are going to learn that how you can basically create templates. Okay, so we will be applying all the JavaScript, the HTML, the CSS over here, and we'll be creating out the templates. And for that, now let's get started. So now to add HTML files over here, temporarily what I'm gonna do is, as I do have these two URLs over here, I will be deleting those. Okay, so for that now let's first come over here, Control C to stop or quit. And now let's come here, and over here I am just going to delete this right over here. And as I do have imported Flask, and also I do have imported redirect and URL for, I'm going to come here, and I am also going to add some other things right over here. Okay, so for that, now let's come here and I will just add render underscore template. So let's type URL comma render underscore template. Okay, so as you guys can see, it's already right over here. And now, as this part is actually done, now we need to understand, as you guys can see, here in my homepage, I actually do have a sentence, and also I do have my HTML. Okay, so this is the H1 tag, and you can also use a slash. Okay, so let's come here, let's put up a slash H1. And now what I'm also going to do is, you can just go into your PC and just go to the page where you are actually opening up the file using which you're working. Okay, so as you guys can see, this is the file website using Flask, and this is my file, which is 1.py. Make sure to set those things in a file. Let's say you can also have two Python files in which you're working. Okay, so now let's come here and I'll just click on new, and I will just create a new folder. Okay, and I'm just going to name this one as my templates. Okay, so I'm just going to open this my templates, and now I'm just going to open it right over here. And what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to come here, let's right click, let's click on new, and you can just create up a new folder, and basically now just name this one as you want. Okay, so mostly for the first HTML file, if you're making, in that case you guys can actually name that thing as index.html, but I will just name this one h1.html. Okay, so make sure to use HTML right over here. Okay, so I will just open 1.html. Okay, so I will just save it as it is over here inside the same folder. Now I'll just close this thing down, and I'll just go to file, and from the file option, what I'll do is I am going to open up a new text file. Okay, or let's come here, and now I will just come here, let's click on open file, and I will just take this one HTML. Let's close this, or instead is, you guys come here and you guys can just delete this one, as you have already created a my templates folder. And now minimize this particular part, go to new file, and from here you guys can just go with new text file. And after that, if you do want to save it, let's go with save as, and I'll just go to my templates, and I will just name over here as 1html. Okay, so as you guys can see, 1.html, and over here you guys can also select the type accordingly, but as I do have already given that, so now let's come here, and as you guys can see, this first HTML file is basically being created. So you need to keep that thing in mind, that now if I just go here inside my templates, And if I just view it in large icon, you guys can see this is my HTML file now. This is not any kind of folder. So when you hover your mouse over this particular document, you guys can see the document type is HTML document. Let's minimize this thing right over here. And now I am going to write out a HTML file. Okay, so let's come here and let's try to write a HTML file. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open tags. Okay, so let's come here and I am going to go with doc type, then HTML, and you can also close this down. Now let's click on enter, and now you guys can just start typing accordingly. Okay, so I will just type, open the tag HTML, close the tag. Let's click on enter, and the same way let's come here and I am going to open my tag and I'm going to go with head, and I'm just going to put out the title. Let's close this thing down, and under title I will just type. So now over here, let's try to add the title. Let's type, this is my home page. Okay, so I'm gonna type this one for my title. Let's come here on the head option and I'm going to click tab. Now let's click on enter. And what I'm going to do is over here now I'm going to add out a different tag, which is the body tag. Okay, so let's come here. Let's click on enter right over here. And under the body here, first, I will just put out the h1 tag. Okay, so let's come here. Let's put h1. Let's close this thing down. And now I will just type the home page in the h1 tag. And now let's click on enter, and I will be adding on the paragraph tag as well. And to write the paragraph tag, p tag, then I will just type hi, and I will just put out the exclamation mark right over here. Okay, so as you guys can see, this particular HTML document is actually ready. So Control S to save it. And now you guys can come to this particular Python file. And if I just click on Control S, this is being saved as well. So now, how you are going to come right over here and how you are going to get this particular HTML on this particular Python file. So for that, what you need to do is you need to come right over here and you need to just delete all the values which you had in your URL return option. Okay, so I will just type return, and from here, you remember over there we do have actually added this particular function which is render underscore template. So I will just type render underscore template. And now once I do have written this one, let's open out the parentheses. And after opening up the parentheses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my double quote. And after opening up the double quote, I will just type one.html. Okay, so as you guys can see now, whatever name you do have put out, okay, you can just use that one. And now as you guys can see, the name of my HTML file was one.html, and Control S to save this particular file, and Control C to stop this, Control C. And again, what I'm going to do is I am going to run this particular thing. Okay, so as you guys can see now, this particular website is running. Now let's come right over here and let's follow the link. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I'm just going to push slash. Let's not slash first, but I'm only going to put slash. Otherwise, let's go with slash my home. slash my home. So now, as I do have mentioned it right over here as well, the HTML file is here. Now, what I gotta do is Control S to save it. Now, let's run this particular file and let's check where the problem is. As you guys can see, it's showing me the problem. Let's go to the HTML file. Let's check out the HTML file as well. As you guys can see at line 1, chart 3, at line 1. Okay, so from Flask, import Flask. Now let's try to run this again. And here now it is basically working better. Now let's come here. Let's go to this HTTP file, follow link, and over here you guys can see now I do have written this one. Let's come here. Let's minimize this. Let's go to the VS Code as well. Let's open out the VS Code and let's open it up as well. Okay, so if you just take a look into my HTML file, okay, so you guys will be able to see that under the H1 tag, I do have the name of the home page, and underneath I do have the paragraph, okay, which is actually uh, located just in between the H1 tag and the like inside the body. Okay, under the H1 tag, I do have the paragraph, and this is how it will appear on your screen. So this is how it basically redirects. But now we are going to learn more about Python and how it actually works for your website. So let's say right over here, as you guys can see, I do have this particular URL page. And specifically, if you do come here and if you want to specifically have a tag, okay? So for that, now let's come here and let's name this one as SOS. And I will just close the SOS tag. Otherwise, what I can do is I can just put the my home tag right over here. Okay, so if I just come here and if I just add this my home tag from here, now I want to have all the things like whenever I type my home, it should be replaced with the HTML which I have. Okay, so if you want to do kind of the same thing after that, what you need to do is you need to go in your HTML file. Okay, and once you're over here in the HTML file, you need to come over here and let's come to this particular place, Control C to quit this one. And as you guys can see, I will just come right over here and I want to add new paragraph. So I'll just click on enter. And after clicking on enter, I will come here and here you guys can see that it's written as hi. So what I'll do is I will come here and I will basically change this one with my home. Okay. So let's come here and I will just delete this one and I will just use the curly braces. Let's come here. Let's add out the curly braces and I will just put out the curly braces over here as well. And let me just put out the content here in the middle. So inside this particular paragraph, okay, I will check what I do have named right over here. So let's say I do have come here and I will just name this one as let's come here and let's go with ABC. And I'll just come here and over here I will just put ABC and then I will just put that ABC is equals to gym. Okay, so I'll just type gym right over here and now let's see how it actually looks. So let's go with HTML file. Let's come right over here, Control C to save it. Let's go to this file or Control S to save it. and Control S to save it right over here. Let's run this one. And now let's come here. Let's follow this particular link. And now right over here, let's go with slash my home, or you guys can directly go to slash first, otherwise slash my home. So now over here, you guys will see if I just come here, and as you guys can see, this particular URL is basically running. And here under the render templates, I do have 1.html, and under content, I do have name, and R is equal to 3 over here. And you guys can use anything else. And under the HTML file over here, I do have the same content. Okay, this particular element or inside the paragraph is inside the double curly bracket. And over here, I do have mentioned the value of content as name and the value of R as 3. So if I just go to my web page and if I just come here and while giving search, let's say if I just put ABC and if I click on enter, here you guys can see the ABC is basically changing and the value of R is 3. If I just come right over here, let me just put 2, Control S to save it. Now let's go to this particular file and I will just come here. Let's go with AB. And if I just click on enter, you guys can see it has been changed to AB as well. Control S to save the factor of R right over here. So let's come here and let's click on back enter again. And whatever I type, it will basically be saved right over here. Okay, so the next thing what we are going to learn is basically about the expression statements. Okay, so we'll know how it actually works. So let me just close this thing down. Let me just come down right over here and let me just close this URL as well using Control C. So now over here, as you guys can see, if I want to change this particular expression, let's come right over here, Control S to save it. Let's go to this 1.html file. And over here now, let me tell you that here inside this particular h1 tag, inside you guys can actually work and basically put on some Python code. So let me show you guys how. So let's come here, let's click on backspace over here and let's click on tab. And after that, what I'm going to do is I am going to open out my curly braces. And after curly braces, if you want to write any kind of Python code, you need to make sure that you do the percentage sign right over here. And after that, I am going to type for loop for underscore in range. So I'm just setting out the range right now. Okay, so I will just use the parenthesis. So let me just go on with 12. Okay, so I will just put on 12 right over here. Now let's click on enter. Okay, and now if you wish to, let's come here, let's close down the curly bracket, and over here again I will just put on the percentage sign, and over here I will just type in for. Okay, so over here now you guys can actually see that here you have applied for in range. So 12 times you can basically print, and after that the for statement is basically ending. And inside this particular for statement also you can apply your own kind of Python. Okay, so if I just come here and if I just click on enter, and after that let's click on a tab, and now let's add a text. So I will just add out a paragraph tag right over here, and I am going to type hello guys. Okay, so I will just type this particular thing right over here, and this is how it actually works. And now you can also run this thing out as well. But also over here inside, let's say instead of this we can also put this one as an x. Okay, so for x, Okay, so let's say for x in range till 12. Okay, and afterwards we can also give out some logic. So let's click on enter right over here. Now let's click on adding a tab over here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open up the curly braces. And after opening up the curly braces, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here, and as now we are going to work on with the if statement, I am going to put on the percentile sign right over here. I am going to tell that if x is, let's come here again, percentile sign is 2, and I will just put double equal to right over here. Then I'm going to put 1 right over here. So in that case, if x is, let's come here again, percentile sign is 2, and I will just put double equal to right over here. Then I'm going to put 1 right over here. So in that case, what I want to do is in the paragraph, it should be x. Okay, so I will just come here and I'll just put it should be x. And afterwards, here I do have the end for statement. But after ending the if statement, I will also put on the end statement as well. So let's come right over here. Let's click on tab. Now let's click on enter, and right over here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to put on the curly braces. And after putting on the curly braces, percentile, and I will just type in if. Okay, so I'm gonna type in if. Let's come right over here, and this is how it actually looks. Let's see, and you can also save this thing up using Control S. Okay, so here, as you guys can see, now I have used Control S. Let's go to the Pi 1. And from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to delete each and everything on Control S to save it back again, Control C. And after that, I will just run this thing. And as you guys can see, the URL is being generated. Let's click on follow link, and after that I am going to go with underscore my home. And here, once I click on enter, you guys can see it is showing me all 6x. Okay, so you guys might be thinking, well, why it is only showing x right over here? So again, let's once go to my HTML file, and if you see in the HTML file, in the for loop, I have mentioned that for x in range should be in between 12. Okay, and under if statement, I am telling that if x is divided by 2, it will be equals to 1. Okay, so over here, under this particular paragraph, I have to make sure to get any statement, I have to put or make this x as variables. Okay, so I will just come right over here, and I will just make this one variable, Control S to save it. Let's go to Pi 1 and Control C. I will just come here, Control C, and I'll stop this one. And let me just run this thing again. And once you're done running, let's come here, let's click on follow link. Now my home, and you here you guys can see that I do have all the numbers over here. Okay, so let's take a look at the HTML file over here as well. It is just exactly as the same as the logic which I have inside my HTML file. Okay, so this is how you guys can actually create templates, and I have showed you guys a lot of things over here throughout this particular chapter. So I hope to see you all in the next chapter where we're gonna learn more about building website using Python. Take care everyone. See you all in the next chapter.